why wouldn't you just imagine a sex hat where you can just be good at sex? Like, because that's an anxiety lots of people have, right?
So someone did imagine that, and it's in the video for Amazing by Aerosmith.
Oh, wait, what? What? Welcome to the Skiffy and Fanty Show's Torture Cinema.
Enhance your calm.
Okay, can I just say, Julia, that of all phrases you could say right now that would enhance my calm, that is not one of them. I can't imagine that works, right? And they have to know. Like, have you ever been in a situation where the police are, like, pulling you over and, like, they go, enhance your calm, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get way more calm now. Like, no, I don't. It's weird. Anyway. I'm Sean.
I'm Trish.
I'm Julia.
And today on our live Torture Cinema show, we'll be discussing the 1993 science fiction action classic Demolition Man, directed by Marco Brambilla and written by Daniel Waters, Robert Renaud, and Peter M. Lenkov. It stars Sylvester Stallone trying to beat Arnold at the box office, Wesley Snipes just being a very handsome, kicky man that he is, Sandra Bullock, who is utterly adorable, Nigel Hawthorne, who I don't really see him as adorable, Sinister, I think would be fair, Sinister, and some other big names you might recognize in smaller roles, including Rob Schneider, slumming it again.
This film was selected by our Patreon supporters based on a poll of bad films around the theme of crime, suggested by Sean, who skipped over our originally planned theme of beaches and bad vacations. Thanks, Duke. But we'll be doing that one next month with a super special guest, so if you are not yet subscribed to our Patreon, please join for as little as $1 a month and get a chance to vote in that poll.
And right now we have a special challenge going on. If our Patreon gets up to $150 per month, by September 1st, that is, we'll do a special Torture Cinema show on 2019's Cats, a film that gives more than one of us nightmares, even if we've never seen it. Please tell everyone about this show and review us wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth is a huge deal for fan-run podcasts, and we need your help to find new ears for this ridiculous show.
I just want to note, the way this is written means I definitely have to get this out in a timely manner. So
you sure do. Yep. And then you're going to have to watch Cats is what I'm gathering.
If we get to 150, we're at like 90 something right now, as of this recording.
I mean, I feel like you could pretty much just kill it by not releasing it until the end of August, and then you won't get $150 for September 1st, and then you won't have to watch Cats.
That's true. But
where's the fun in that?
I mean, to be fair, we'd have fun watching 2019's Cats because we'd get entertainment out of it. But it would still cause us to probably have to go into outpatient treatment of some kind. Yeah. You do know, Julia, that there is a cut of the 2019 Cats that has cat buttholes that they CG'd in, right? Did you know that was a thing they were thinking of doing?
Of course,
they were going to put cat buttholes on all the cat people.
Okay.
Like, can you imagine the order coming down into the special effects department? And by the way, we'd like you to put a butthole on every cat and render it properly so it follows the butts as they move through, because the butts are always exposed because they're cats.
Look, we need to do big numbers at the box office, so make sure you put a cat butthole on Taylor Swift immediately.
Oh my god. That might, honestly, if you put a cat butthole on Taylor Swift and Cats, does that prevent her supremacy as a pop star of the time? And not even that could take her down.
I mean, if the movie itself didn't, I don't see how that would make a difference.
Oh, good lord. All right, well, let's get to what we're drinking. As a reminder, please know that while we may consume alcohol in this show, and you may if you are of age and are able to do so, you should imbibe irresponsibly. Please don't drive. Don't do anything you shouldn't do while you're consuming. Don't overconsume. All that good stuff. Take care of yourself. It is not required that anybody drink alcohol on this show. Some of us will, some of us won't. It's fine. No pressure. You drink what you like. Water is even a suitable drink. If anything, water's hardcore. So go for it. With that in mind, Trish, what beverage are you drinking?
Well, sadly, I finished up my cran elderberry ocean spray juice earlier today. That is some weird tasting stuff, but refreshing. But also refreshing is just my pure, clear H2O with ice out of my new Stanley insulated mug, since I damaged and broke the last insulated mug I have, and since I have a problem with spillage, I like sippy cups, but adult-sized sippy cups.
I think that's fine. You are at a computer, so spillage is extra bad.
Right. And what are you drinking, Julia?
Since alcohol, caffeine, salt, and all the other things are bad for us and outlawed, I am drinking some nice, calm-enhancing ginger tea out of my giant cat mug.
Whoa.
And what about you, Sean?
Are pets allowed in San Angeles? I don't remember seeing any pets.
They didn't mention either way, so I'm gonna guess it's okay for me to have a cat mug.
I feel like that evil religious guy would probably be okay with dogs because they're subservient and would serve you.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you drinking, Sean?
I have in my very large beer stein, because I didn't really have anything else to put in it, a drink that I'm going to refer to as the Taco Bell Demolition. Because in this,
it's so green.
it is very
Wow.
green because I put all sorts of blue and green things in the same thing. So it has in it, first off, some Superbird Fuego tequila. It is a spicy tequila. It just makes it kind of taste like it's got like that spice mix you'll sometimes get at like the supermarket where they're like, oh, it's like Mexican spices. It kind of tastes like that. Yeah. I don't know if it has anything to do with it. But anyway, it's got that in it. I've got some blue curacao, some Midori melon liqueur because I like it, some key lime juice, BT dubs, and a whole bunch of the one and only Mountain Dew Baja Blast, which you can currently get in both the regular and zero form at your local Taco Bell. And as we all know, the local Taco Bell will win the fast food wars in the future. Not Pizza Hut, damn it. In case you watch the international edition where they put Pizza Hut in here, the bastards. Anyway, so that's what I'm drinking. It is a Taco Bell Demolition.
So wait, what does the original actual movie have?
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
As I said, at your local Taco Bell, you can now buy Baja Blast in both zero and regular sugared form at a local Taco Bell.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the United States. I don't know that they have that anywhere else. Anyway, if Baja Blast Mountain Dew would like to sponsor this show, let me know. We're cheap.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's now summarizing time. Would Julia like to summarize this movie?
Sure. Okay,
Yay.
so Demolition Man. This is a movie that came out in 1993. And in this movie, in the year 1996, somehow everything in LA is like post-apocalyptic war zone. And Wesley Snipes is an evil villain who hijacks like a busload of passengers and holds them hostage. And Sylvester Stallone's been trying to chase him for ages. And then he ends up having a showdown with him. It goes very badly. All the passengers end up dead. And both Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone end up being put in cryo prison where they are frozen and they are not to be up for parole for at least 50 years. But then in the year 2032, which is before 50 years, somehow Wesley Snipes escapes. And then eventually, in this world, in 2032, everything has gotten to be a terrifying utopia society where there is no crime and the police don't have guns, but also no one's allowed to do literally anything. So Sylvester Stallone ends up being unfrozen by the San Angeles Police Department. That is all of the cities of Santa Barbara all the way down to San Diego in Southern California have all kind of merged into one, and they have one big police force, and they unfreeze Sylvester Stallone so he can go and take care of the Wesley Snipes problem because he is murder, death, killing people, something that apparently hasn't happened since 2010. And they don't know how to deal with it because they've literally never dealt with any violence before in their entire lives. Except for like one guy who's old and was a cop previously in the 90s. But I guess he still can't actually do anything. So anyway, Sylvester Stallone comes back to the future and learns that the future sucks and he would like guns, and so would Wesley Snipes. So they end up having a fight in a museum, which is the only place where there are guns. Wesley Snipes gets them all. Turns out Sylvester Stallone's been programmed to know how to knit now, but Wesley Snipes knows how to use guns and override computer systems. So lots of havoc ensues. Turns out Dennis Leary is leading a bunch of people in the underground sewers. Sandra Bullock is a cop who really wishes things were more exciting, and then suddenly things are more exciting, and it's a little bit scary, but she's into it. And then in the end, it turns out that they decide that they're going to have to find a way forward where maybe things will be more even. Also, all the restaurants in the future are Taco Bell and everyone only listens to commercials.
Yes. I don't know what else to say to that except that our version of this would just be everybody going, "What's up?" That'd basically be it. There'd be no jingles. It'd just be like catchphrases from them. It'd be like a camel would show up in hologram and go, "Hump Day." Like that'd be what you get. It's ridiculous. Oh, man. Well, great. Did we miss anything, Trish? You think you got it all?
I mean, I don't think we missed anything important because nothing in this movie was important.
Whoa. What?
I mean, I did skip over a lot. I didn't talk about how Nigel Hawthorne is actually secretly the mastermind behind all of this, how he is the one who's responsible for Wesley Snipes coming back because he wants him to kill Dennis Leary. But then, of course, Wesley Snipes is unpredictable and ends up killing Nigel Hawthorne instead and taking over. Nigel Hawthorne also has a sidekick who is played by Glenn Shaddix, and he is willing to serve pretty much anybody who has power and switches allegiances like that.
And don't forget the 3 seashells.
Yes.
Yeah.
He didn't even know how to use them.
I mean, does anybody? Rob
No,
Schneider's
literally
like,
no one.
I love that Rob Schneider's in there being like, he doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells. And it's like, you don't either, guy. You haven't wiped your ass in 10 years. You have no idea what's going on.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I read that the 3 seashells thing happened because they wanted to come up with something like weird that was going on in the bathrooms. And the guy who was responsible for writing it was in a bathroom and noticed that there was like a bag of seashells on the back of the toilet and was like, seashells, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
That's adorable. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
Well, I guess we should get to some likes. And since Julie has just spoken a whole bunch, I will make Trish go. So Trish, give us a like about this movie, a legitimate like that would make you rewatch this movie again and again because you love it.
I'm really not sure I could go that far, but I did enjoy. Somehow this movie did a lot of tropes, but in such a way that I actually enjoyed calling out what was going to happen next, instead of being annoyed and bored by them. And I don't know how they accomplished this magic, but for instance, when Sandra Bullock suggested that they have sex to Sylvester Stallone, I called it that it was going to be virtual sex like in Barbarella. And when that actually happened, and they're like in her place, and he's like, okay, let's do it, and she hands him a headset, and he's confused. I felt vindicated and happy that I had called it instead of oh my god, they're just ripping off Barbarella. I don't know how they accomplished this magic of actually making me happy that I was calling their tropes, but they did it in such a way that I found pleasure in it.
Oh, but he certainly didn't. So, like, okay, I get the concept, right? Like, oh, well, like, sex, especially it's like 1990s, they're extrapolating from that. There's all, like, the AIDS crisis is still technically going on. Lots of concerns about STDs and unprotected sex, and you can get pregnant and all this stuff that can happen if you do the boogie woogie, right? So I get, like, conceptually, it's like, oh, cool, yeah, we could just do mind sex. You can have all the pleasure part, but none of the, like, danger part, which actually is, if anything, where we should go, because it would shut up a lot of people, because, like, what are you going to do? They're not getting pregnant, so there's no problems. Shut up. Mind your business.
Yeah, and then if you actually want to procreate, you go to a lab.
Yeah.
Simple.
Well, I mean, I guess you could do it that way if you want, but, like, based on what we're shown...
You know, incidentally, I think that means if they're having artificial womb kids, which seemed to be implied, that would lead to greater liberation, you know, for women, not tied to their biology, you know. Yeah. Not hampering their careers by having to take off time to have babies and stuff. So that would be a good thing.
It would be,
of course, it's kind of hard to have greater liberation when you're literally not allowed to do anything.
That is fair. But
well,
logistically,
but equally, nobody is allowed to do anything.
Sure.
But can I ask, like, obviously we don't get to experience this technology, so maybe it's, like, a lot of fun and, like, really pleasurable. But based on what we're shown, does that not look like a nightmare to you? Like, to me, I'd be like, oh no, get me out of this. This looks horrifying.
I could not actually watch it. It was a migraine trigger. So as soon as it started happening, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to look away until this is over.
Oh, yeah. So
it did seem as though it was specifically designed to trigger seizures in anyone experiencing it.
Yeah, I definitely get migraines from flashing lights. So that was a no for me.
So maybe that technology double time would be bad for, like, anybody with any kind of seizure related concern, or migraines or whatever. But then I guess Sylvester Stallone, who's effectively like a perfect specimen somehow, except for all the steroids. But like allegedly, just to be, please don't sue me, Sylvester Stallone. I know you can actually kill me with your pinky. I get it. I love you and Rambo. I love you, boo. It's fine. But, like, every time I watch that, I'm like, no wonder nobody is, like, excited for sex in this culture. Because this is, like, is this what they think sex is like? This is horrifying. It's horrible. Every part of it, like, it's just, like, some, like, flashing lights, a random face smacking you in your mind, and then, like, weird moaning sounds. And that's what sex is supposed to be. And it's, like, no wonder it's, like, awkward when she asks him, like, would you like to have sex? It's, like, because there's nothing to this. It's you just put a hat on, and then you have a nightmare.
So is this your dislike, Sean?
No, I'm trying to understand. Like, why'd they make a shitty technology for sex?
I feel like it's a very 1990s vision of virtual reality, which I feel like we've seen before in possibly Lawnmower Man.
Yeah.
Was it Lawnmower Man where they have like the big virtual reality sex scene thing? And like, it's a very similar situation where you're like, who's enjoying this? But I remember also living through that era and being like, in the future, like, things will transcend everything. You'll go into virtual reality and just like feel weird stuff and it'll be cool. And now we have like virtual reality headsets that look nothing like that. And also it's not cool. Like that is not the vision that anyone wants.
Like, why wouldn't you just imagine a sex hat where you can just be good at sex? Like, because that's an anxiety lots of people have, right?
So someone did imagine that, and it's in the video for Amazing by Aerosmith.
Oh, wait, what? What?
Have you never seen the video for Amazing by Aerosmith, which is also from the same era? The whole story of that video is literally like Alicia Silverstone and whoever the kid is, Eddie Furlong, maybe, end up they both in their separate rooms. they put on their virtual reality headsets and they connect on the internet, and then they go on like exciting extreme sports adventures and a motorcycle ride, and they have super hot sex. And then at the end, it's like, oh, that was all great virtual reality.
Wait, hold on. Did they do the sex in it?
They definitely imply it. Like, I don't know that they can show sex because this was like aired on MTV.
Well, but also, weren't they like
clearly
children?
Implied. They're teenagers. It's clearly implied
okay.
that they definitely had virtual reality sex.
And it's Jason London, by the way, is paired with her.
Okay.
So, from
I
Dazed
couldn't
and
remember.
Confused.
Like, it's been a while. But, like, yes, this was the whole story of that video. And it was because at the time, everybody was like, virtual reality is coming and it's gonna be sick.
Yeah, I you know what? If it was more like what you're describing, I suppose it would be kind of cool. But, like, not in this movie. I mean, this is what Elon Musk would do if he made a sex hat. Like, it'd be this crappy. It'd give people seizures. Nobody would actually enjoy it. It would confuse generations of humans about what sex actually is. And it would in no way improve society. And just like in this, it does absolutely nothing beneficial for society other than, I guess there's less STDs and people don't get pregnant when they don't want to be.
Yeah, okay, like, I'd say it does a lot that's beneficial for society because the AIDS crisis was a really big issue.
That's a fair
point. And this does name check that. And it says specifically, Sandra Bullock says, first there was AIDS, then there were 2 other made up diseases that came after it, and she names them. So they've clearly had multiple waves of really devastating STD transmission.
Yeah, that's fair.
And like, honestly, we're living in a pandemic right now where COVID transmission is still going on. So like, I can understand how that turns out to be the thing that they do.
It's more like if Jeff Bezos made it, which is like, he makes something useful, but it also does bad things.
I think the other thing that you're not taking into account is that we're seeing this all from Sylvester Stallone's viewpoint, and he's not used to it. So it's entirely possible that the experience for the first time for someone who's really not expecting it and not used to it is very jarring and confusing, but that for people who are raised with it as the norm, maybe they understand how to participate and it actually does feel good.
It makes total sense.
It's like real sex. Like, sometimes the first time you go do it, it's awkward and weird. Just saying.
Oh, well, yeah, because when he suggests exchanging bodily fluids, Sandra Bullock is horrified.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which is an interesting thing, right? Fluid exchange. Like, it's even the way it's described as like medical and like really feels disgusting. And she's not into like, don't kiss me, like, don't put your lips on me. Even like touching is a little bit not. Even like the cops, when they're trying to arrest Wesley Snipes, they're like, put their hand out or like, talk firmly. Like, you know, they don't want to touch him necessarily. So it seems like a culture that is almost not it's lost some of the physical contact that is more typical of society. They pulled that away a bit too, except when necessary. If anything, this is now a like, because now I like got a lot of like meat I could really. I'm citing you when I write a paper on this, Julia.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm so sorry. I totally hijacked that because I really wanted to talk about the sex hats, but
what was that? Was that a like? Was that a dislike? Where are we on this podcast?
we're still on.
It started out with my like of being able to call the tropes.
Yeah. I just had questions like about the logistics of the sex hats. That's all. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't dislike it, by the way, because it's an interesting idea, even regardless of how you interpret it. I just.
I think we should move on.
Yes, we should. Let's move on from the sex hats. So, Julia, what is your like?
My like, and this is 100% sincere, is I love a lot of the costuming that they did. Apparently, they hired people who had done costuming for the 1984 Dune. And if you just look at like any of the background people in this utopia are wearing the craziest, most fun costumes. And I love it. I also like genuinely really love Wesley Snipes' whole aesthetic, both in the 90s and when he comes back in the future. It's so colorful and perfect for the 90s villain. And also Glenn Shadix wearing his little weird kimono with his multicolored hair. Like, I don't understand why this is happening, but I did kind of love all of the weird costumes.
I'd agree. Yeah. They spent, this is one of, in general, I would say, like, visually, it's a pretty cool looking film.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots of good costumes. It looks like they spent at least $10 making, like, other types of cars for the future. There's some cool special
They
effects.
actually had, I think it might have been GM provided, like, 17 models of possible, like, future cars for them.
Cool.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's one Oldsmobile, a car brand that no longer exists. But for the tender price of $69,000, we can get a 1970 Oldsmobile 442 in blue. So if you want to donate to my campaign so I can have more classic cars in my life. Ko-fi.com. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, yeah, so the costuming is pretty great. A lot of good set design, which is pretty fun. It's a pretty film.
Yeah. I genuinely really liked the costuming. I thought it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you might have thought in 1993 that 2032 might have looked more futuristic and different, but really, styles have not evolved all that hugely in 2024. So, I'm sure you could see the skunkhead kimono wearer type. I'm sure you can see a lot of people like that in LA right now.
Probably, yeah.
I did think it looked different than in the 90s, and I did think it looked a very 90s vision of the future.
Yes.
But also, I will say that they were going to set it farther into the future so that it would make more sense for everything to have happened the way it did. Because, like, it's kind of weird that everything happened that quickly. And they didn't, because they were really, really interested in having this plot line where Sylvester Stallone finds his daughter. And then they just completely dropped it. So they just cut it out of the movie. So there's a point where he has a conversation with Sandra Bullock where he's like, I have a daughter. And she's like, it's kind of a misuse of police power, but I could look her up. And he's like, nah. And that's it. That's all of it.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of weird. Like, it's like an Ellen Ripley moment, kind of, from Aliens. and yet, in that case, they had her daughter died because she's been gone long enough that her, she's just not with us anymore.
This daughter is definitely still alive.
Yeah.
One hopes that Sylvester Stallone is just thinking, okay, let me catch this terrorist guy first, and then I can work on the family reunion stuff.
Or
maybe
he is the ultimate absent father.
Well, I mean, okay, so from Sylvester Stallone's standpoint, he was put into cryo care like 50 years ago or whatever, but for him it was literally yesterday. And then he wakes up, it's been one day, he's like, where's my wife? They're like, oh, she died. And then by the end of that day, he's like, Sandra Bullock is pretty hot, let's just get together with her. It's taken him a whole day to get over his wife.
Okay, but in his
that
defense,
was going to be my dislike, but now I'll have to think of something else.
But in his defense,
I'm
it's
sorry.
Sandra
you
Bullock.
can still have that as a dislike. I'm sure you have more things to say.
I'm still going to say it. In his defense, it's Sandra Bullock. So, she's very cute. I think technically 4,000 years younger than him.
She is very cute, but I don't know if your wife should listen to this podcast.
No, in fairness, I'm not going to commit a crime where I get put in, like, cryo rehabilitation for 30 years, so.
That you know of, but you never know what could happen in 3 years, because apparently it took literally 3 years from 1993 for us to have full-on post-apocalyptic war zone LA and cryo prison.
That is fair, but in my defense, because I like defending myself, where I'm moving, the biggest crime I suppose I could commit is accidentally stealing corn. So, I don't think that I'm going to go to prison in the, like, crazy cryo. But since we're talking about this, I will mention that I have many likes, as I really enjoy this film in general, but I really like its attempt to try to imagine a more humane way of dealing with crime, even though it is one that, if you think about it for like 10 seconds, it starts to become rather horrifying. Because unlike other crime, like RoboCop, which is roughly in the same area, right? Where like they just build like a robot man who just kills people or like beats the crap out of them and then locks them up. Their lives really don't matter as criminals. This society, before we jump to the future, has decided that theoretically anybody could be rehabilitated. And so you get like cryo-frozen. It's not necessarily the most humane thing, but theoretically anybody could get paroled and released at some point because they were given some sort of like hypnotic suggestion or something that gives them skills or gives them behaviors that are meant to counteract, whatever is causing the criminal activity, whatever the science behind that is. I appreciate that because so much of the way that we think of like dystopian criminal systems is, well, you just kill them. They're not really human at that point. We don't care about them. They just die. This is one that says, well, like even Mr. Spartan, who has like inadvertently, supposedly caused dozens and dozens of people to die because he didn't follow any of the rules and just like went in and caused problems. Well, even he can be fixed, even though he's kind of a raging asshole. Now, it doesn't actually work, because it turns out knitting doesn't stop you from being a raging asshole. But he can make Sandra Bullock a sweater, which is a great way to apologize. So,
in one night?
In one night. He does it in one night. Look, he's real good. He's had decades of subliminal messaging. Come on.
This is his Keanu Reeves I know Kung Fu moment, except what he knows is knitting.
Yeah, I know knitting. Sorry. Oh no, it's not Keanu Reeves. It would be Adrian, I know knitting. Ugh. I don't know. I can't do Sylvester Stallone. I'm sorry. All I can do is like that's it. Sorry, Sylvester Stallone, please don't kill me.
All right, so I think that's taking care of our likes. Should we move on to dislikes?
Sure.
Wait, did Sean actually have a like?
Yeah, I said I like the way it imagines a more theoretically
he likes
humane...
the horrifying way they imprison people.
Okay. Sorry, I had...
yeah, I do.
I thought that was just a continuation of discussion from an earlier point. Sorry.
All right.
Okay, so that means
Dislikes.
we should go to...
It's you, Trish. Give me your dislike.
Dislikes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So...
Nothing.
Normally I'm a fan of as much authenticity as possible in science and history exhibits, but if you have a museum in a pacifistic society, or really any society whatsoever, you do not display loaded guns and charged pulsar rifles. You just don't. It's a bad idea. Even if you don't have terrorists or whatever, you can have curious children who get into exhibits and point things at each other, and it's just a terrible idea to put power packs in your pulse rifles and bullets in your guns when you have them on display. And I am offended at the future society that does this. So I guess it certainly made things convenient for plot reasons, but I'm against it.
Are you saying, Trish, that you've never been to a museum where they have bullets alongside the replica guns that they placed in there?
The military museums that I've been to, they pour cement down the mouths of the cannons so that people can't steal the cannons and use them, for nefarious purposes.
Okay.
It's just smart to do things that way.
Yeah, I agree. You probably shouldn't. If you're trying to curb people's violent behaviors, making it easy for them to commit violent behaviors is maybe not the tactic, especially when you know you've built a society where the level of physical response to violence is stop and cease and desist, citizen. I'm sorry, you have to have something more than that if you're going to do something this dumb, and they don't.
As Lilani points out in chat, having the bullets alongside the guns is one thing, but actually having loaded guns on display, even behind glass, just terrible.
Yeah,
don't do it.
Yeah, they do. To be fair, it can handle a Wesley Snipes kick, which I am told is they asked him, the reason why his kicks don't look nearly as good as they should is that apparently he kicks too fast because he is actually a black belt. So they asked him to slow it down so that it wouldn't look blurred in the camera. And so every time he kicks, it doesn't look nearly as forceful. And that's, I suspect, in part so that when he fights Sylvester Stallone, it seems like two people on equal footing and not... Realistically, Wesley Snipes would beat the crap out of Sylvester Stallone. Sorry, Sylvester Stallone, please don't kill me. But that's just true. So I suppose, like, the glass is tempered, but not enough that when you just gently toss a human body into it that it cracks and breaks. So it's very confusing.
Yeah, I think tossing the human body against it just worked because he had softened up the glass and made microfractures and stuff before with his kicks.
Was that part of his conditioning, too, while he was under, that, like, he took advanced physics?
Unclear.
Okay, because the amount of things he learned while he was under that we now know he shouldn't have learned, he learned a lot of evil stuff on top of all the other evil stuff he already knew. So I wonder if, like, they threw in some, like, also, we're going to give him some, like, whatever form of physics that is, like an advanced study in, like, human body versus glass physics or something, so that he can just always do those calculations when he's out in public. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer to this problem. So, Julia, what say you?
All right, so my dislike is that I don't really understand what happened in 3 years from 1993 to 1996. And I really wanted to know how on earth we got from 1993, a time when I was alive and a teenager, to 1996, a time when I was still alive and a teenager. And somehow it went from things are basically normal to everything is a hellscape and we have cryo prison. And I was never given an answer. And I really thought, like, maybe at some point they would explain, but they did not. I feel like I was shortchanged there, and I want to know how on earth we got to that point.
Would you have felt better if it had been set in, say, 2003 instead of 1996?
I feel like if you had given it even 10 years, then, like, but also, like, if you had said, like, the urban wars started and then, like, gangs took over and the police brutality from, like, you know, Rodney King riots being a thing, the police get worse, but also the people get worse and everything's bad. And you just said what happened, I would be like, okay. But also, like, we did not have cryotechnology in 1993, but suddenly we have a sophisticated prison system where we can freeze someone and hypnotically suggest to them how to learn how to knit and override computer systems. Like, all of this happened while I was in high school? Like, from 0 to it's fully formed? I don't know how that happened.
It does seem rather quick for society to, like, collapse and then come back into this at all. Wait, no, it's not 3 years, though. Wait, hold on. Because it's decades.
So the movie is released in 1993, but the first scene takes place in the year 1996.
Oh, you're right. Okay,
so when you're watching that movie in the movie theater in 1993, you're looking at a vision of 3 years in the future when, for some reason that is not explained, like, if you, like me, grew up in Southern California and would have gone to the theater to see this in Southern California, you would have gone in from a normal world of Southern California and been like, apparently in 3 years, everything's going to be a hellscape and we have cryo prison. But how?
Well, the cryo prison, I agree, because that's some science. But it is worth noting, the year prior to this movie's release was the LA riots.
No, that's what I said. The Rodney King riot. Like, but you'd have to go pretty far from that to where we are.
I guess, like, yeah, I don't quite... It seems weird. It feels like an LA vision of the 90s. Like, you've just experienced this very extreme moment. And, like, if you just forget the rest of the country exists, like, LA is the world. Like,
you do have to, like, forget the rest of the country exists, but also I would have liked any explanation for what was going on.
Yeah.
Like, how they got there, because it's really not explained. And yes, LA had just gone through that.
Yeah.
I was literally there. like, I was working in my brother's jewelry store, which was on Melrose in LA, and we had to, like, close up shop and board up and get out of there. And then, like, we managed to get back to his house, but it was kind of dicey because we got caught in an area where there were, like, some protesters and looters looting a local store, and they started to shake cars that were stuck in the cars line that we were in. So it was a little bit like, whoa, this is scary. And I literally did experience this firsthand. And then things were closed for a few days while people tried to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
But, like, even with that, it was nothing like this.
Yeah, like the extremes.
Well, Prince Justin suggests in chat that maybe this whole movie is set in an alternate universe to begin with, which certainly seems reasonable on the evidence. And Lurlaney correctly points out that in this movie, the big earthquake happened in 2010 to let the cult leader reshape culture of San Angeles. And that's fine, but Julia is rightly pointing out that this cryogenics and sleep teaching thing happened way before then.
I don't have an issue with the setting up of the future society. My issue is really with, like, what on earth happened between 1993 and 1996 that caused the world to be what it was in the beginning of the movie. And I will say that the alternate universe thing is interesting, but also Sandra Bullock is a 20th century junkie who has a collection of things, including, like, a poster for Lethal Weapon 3.
Yeah!
So we know that at least, like, some things from our world, like Taco Bell, Lethal Weapon, the Jolly Green Giant theme song, which is what the fancy band plays when they go to eat in Taco Bell. Like, those are all things that happened. So it may be alternate, but it's not that alternate.
Well, it's a constant across all the multiverses that people from the future are fascinated by 20th century Western culture. You see that again and again in Star Trek and I don't know how many other things. You know, people are always fascinated in that section of history.
It really is true. It's weird how that works out.
It's almost like the U.S. and other parts of the quote-unquote developed West have spent literally a century disseminating their culture, sometimes by force and sometimes by pressures, economic pressures. But, you know, no comment. You're right, Julia. It is bizarre. It's a detail that, like, my brain doesn't think about because it doesn't make sense how we get there that quickly. It's the kind of thing like you see in dystopias from like the late 80s through a lot of the 90s where like even like when we watched Rotor is, I guess, I can't remember when Rotor is set, but it's not that many years in the future. It's certainly not visually. It's not very far in the future because they didn't have any money to set anything. But it does the same kind of thing where like they're constantly saying like, oh, like society is collapsing and there's crime everywhere, even in Texas. And like the world's going horrible. So we're building a cop robot who's going to go around and deal with all the problems for us, and he doesn't get tired, so he can police all the time, and then it goes bad, and he murders everybody. And it's always this weird, like, I imagine in this case, this isn't like a right-wing fantasy, but it is often like a right-wing fantasy about, like, oh, the crime's gotten out of hand, and, like, we have to, like, solve it with our new thing that will absolutely not cause more problems, except it does.
This deliberately did set out to not take a political stance. They apparently were trying not to and just kind of wanted to be like neutral. They're like, we should just kind of compromise and be somewhere in the middle. And that's kind of where they end up.
Which just, I agree. It does, like, okay, could we just, it's not a dislike. It's more like, I hate the idea that there'd be like the machines watching you everywhere in case you cursed to like give you basically tickets for cursing and not just like the bad words, even like damn and hell, which I get. When in the 90s, my grandmother told me I wasn't allowed to say the words until I heard her say the B word once, and I was like, Grandma, that's not right. The rules have to apply to both of us. But this is absurd. Like the level of like social conditioning that obviously isn't working because even everyday citizens occasionally curse. It's ridiculous. And then if you do it multiple times in a row, you have to stay there and the police show up and you have to go through some sort of conditioning, which is like, what? Well, because I said the word damn? This is why
because you said it multiple times.
I said it multiple times. This is why when Wesley Snipes is just sitting there going F-bomb and all of these words he's just fuck and shit all this stuff, and that he's getting all these tickets and he's like, I don't care, and I'm like, this is the only thing I agree with you on, buddy. we're on the same page.
And then Sylvester Stallone does it so that he can have toilet paper.
Yeah, that's right, because he doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells.
But yeah, I think the movie agrees with you that it's too far. And that's why in the end, they're like, we got to come up with a compromise that's somewhere in the middle. Now Nigel Hawthorne's dead. He's not controlling society anymore. Yeah. We can remake it in whatever image we ultimately decide. And it's very open-ended, and it doesn't take a there is one right way or one wrong way stance.
Yeah.
Well, I think it says that it was what was happening before was wrong.
Yes.
And I have to agree with that because it looked like, in another 100 years or whatever, you could easily end up with an Eloy and Morlocks situation where you have the totally passive, pacifistic upper dwellers and the violent and thieving lower dwellers.
I mean, I think we already have that in the 2032 of this movie. Upstairs, everybody's like, we won't say any bad words. And if we do, we'll wait for the police to come. And then downstairs, everybody's like, guns and rat meat burgers for all.
It's like, yeah, I don't like either one. Dennis Leary, I appreciate you, but everyone doesn't need a gun. We could have rules, right? Rules. Let's do that. Just saying.
So, I guess that leads you to your dislike, Sean.
I dislike absolutely nothing about this movie. It is perfect. It is a 100%. It is a great film. I love it.
Wow.
To death. No, it is not. It's not a bad movie. I just want to be very clear. It doesn't actually deserve to be here. The only reason it is here is because a conversation Julia and I had when I was visiting the Boston area, and I brought up this movie, and Julia was like, let's do that movie. And I was like, okay, I'll put it on the poll. And then I mentally manipulated all of the Patreon supporters to pick that one. So you're welcome for your psychosomatic conditioning that I put you all through. Finally, I have broken the code.
Specifically, Sean was like, you've never seen this movie. You have to see it. I'm going to make the poll work in your favor.
Yes, that's exactly how I did it. And so I love this movie, and it's also very much schlocky in a lot of very ridiculous and silly ways. The thing I think I dislike the most about this movie is I am not entirely convinced by the choreography in the fight between Stallone and Wesley Snipes. Now, this is a thing where I get it. Wesley Snipes, he has a black belt. He can basically kick Stallone's neck in and replace his head with another head if he wanted to, with just his foot. He is legitimately he has a lot of skill. And he's not very well represented here because he has to slow down. But I feel like they could have taken advantage of Stallone's previous boxing experience, which he's not really a professional boxer, but he has a decent amount of on-screen activity where he's trained in that capacity. They could have done that as a combo of styles to kind of show that difference, the sort of brute strength boxing, take a beating, but still never give up kind of idea that Stallone is often known for in his movies, and then the finesse hardcoreness of Snipes. But what we get is, frankly, a fight where Stallone gets the crap beat out of him for the most part, and then in the end, he just freezes Wesley Snipes to death, which is cool and makes for a great moment where Wesley Snipes' head falls off and then shatters, which is fun. But I just don't buy that fight would have gone that way, let alone I don't understand why nobody in the 1990s can hit a damn thing with a gun. Nobody can hit anything. It doesn't matter what you shoot, you will never hit nothing. So what's the point of the guns? Just leave them. I don't understand why anyone in 1990s movies ever shoots a gun. What's the point? You never hit a damn thing. They just shoot everywhere. The bullets fly everywhere. They hit everything except the people. You don't need them. Just get rid of the guns. You don't hit nothing. Anyway, so I love the 90s. I love 90s movies. The fights in this are probably the weak point for me. They could do better. There you go.
Should we grade it? Or
yeah, Trish, I think we should grade it now. I'm ready.
All right. Sean, what's your grade for this?
Legitimately? Or do you want like my grade that's to troll people?
Your actual grade.
So like I would probably agree with Roger Ebert about this film, which is that he found it rather enjoyable. It's got wonderful satire, and it does some very interesting stuff that a lot of films of this ilk in the 90s do, and it's like one of my favorite eras of schlocky sci-fi nonsense. So I'm giving it a B+, because I enjoy this film a lot.
What about you, Trish?
Well, my first thought was a C, because this movie glides along and, there isn't anything really, really horrible about it, but there are several minor annoyances, such as how do you get from 93 to 96 with the tech, and the way Stallone just completely forgets his dead wife and jumps on the chance to jump on Sandra Bullock, and the museums, the guns in the museums, and I've also given several other movies that I actually thought were more interesting than this C minuses, so I'm settling on a C minus for my grade.
Sean is so upset, but also I love the fact that when you gave it a B+, Trish gasped, like horrified.
I love this
so
movie.
Good.
I'd watch it again. It's a lot of fun.
So good.
Every time Sandra Bullock can't get a 20th century phrase correct, it's hilarious.
Okay, so for my grade for this movie, I feel like it's not terrible. Like Trish said, there are a lot of things that happen where you're like, oh, this could have gone a lot worse. Like when Sylvester Stallone and Sandra Bullock try to have sex, and he's like, oh no, this is awful, and she gets really upset with him and tells him he's not being a gentleman and he needs to leave. He's like upset, but all he does is leave, which is great. Like, way to actually do consent right. Like That's true. He doesn't consent to the sex that she wants to have, and she doesn't consent to him being there, and so he leaves.
And he apologizes.
He can be mad about it, but he leaves.
And he apologizes the next day by knitting her a sweater.
So that's good. Like many movies that we have done in torture cinema, it is not great on the women. Like, there is Sandra Bullock, and I don't think there really are other notable female roles in this movie at all. Like, there may be a few women that we see in the background. I don't know that we have any that have any memorable lines. I can't remember if there are any that have any actual lines other than Sandra Bullock. So that's not great. But that's kind of also to be expected from the era, especially. So there's kind of like, it's a mix. And then there's the stuff like, okay, the backstory of what happened is not explained. It kind of, I don't know. I feel like, on the other hand, I did genuinely love the costumes, and I love seeing Glenn Shaddock's eat scenery in his little character role. He's always fun to watch. He's fun to watch in Beetlejuice. He's fun to watch in this. He's great to watch in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, where he plays Caligula in that one episode. So it's always fun to see him. It's always fun to see Nigel Hawthorne. There's a lot to like about it. So I think with all of that, I would give this movie a B. It's not an A movie. It's not like... It's not like Sons of Steel.
Sons of Steel's on Shudder right now, by the way. You're welcome.
But it does have a lot of fun things in it. I agree, it is really funny every time Sandra Bullock tries to say something from the 20th century and gets it completely wrong. And Taco Bell being the restaurant of the future is pretty funny as well.
Pizza Hut.
So yeah, fun fact about the Taco Bell thing. This is just trivia. They wanted it to be Burger King originally, and Burger King was like, not interested. And so then they approached McDonald's, and McDonald's was like, not interested. And they were like, Taco Bell? And Taco Bell was like, hell yeah, we're all over it.
I mean, yeah.
That's funny. That's cool.
Taco Bell is not above slumming it.
They wanted it to be Burger King. They were like, every restaurant is Burger King in the future. And it was like, nah, Taco Bell is the one that's willing to have you. Which I feel like makes sense. Because Taco Bell is like the restaurant where people canonically would like get stoned and eat a bunch of tacos and probably then also watch this movie.
But like, well, that's so interesting. So like, if you think about this, Burger King has absolutely no business being snooty about this, but like, I get it. They think that they're better than they actually are because they make the Whopper or whatever. But if you think about Taco Bell's history since this movie, they have owned it that they are the Munchies place, because they used to have the Munchies commercials, like we're open from like, what is it, like midnight to like Munchie hour, basically, right? Because they knew high people would come in and buy a bunch of tacos, and they're like, yeah, we got your back, bro. And now they just have like a bunch of like, I assume people on various kinds of drugs, from shrooms all the way up to just marijuana and alcohol, making recipes, because now they made a giant Cheez-It Crunch wrap, which is horrible, by the way.
Okay, but I will say that I actually did enjoy the Cheez-It tostada. So I feel like the Crunch Wrap, it's gonna get soggy in the middle. Yeah. I didn't even try it, but that's the tostada, if you eat it right away, it's still crunchy. It's actually pretty great.
I will say this about Taco Bell, which is why they already have in my heart won the fast food wars, which is that Taco Bell has, in the last 20 years in particular, shown that of all of the fast food companies, they're the only ones willing to experiment and make something new. 90% of what they make sounds like the ravings of a madman. Like, it sounds like a Norse saga, like, tried to describe what Taco Bell was like, and that's what we got. But I'm going to give them credit until the day I die for being like, we're going to make things that sound nuts but might be good. Like, Doritos tacos. Nobody asked for this. Nobody was like, I need a taco made out of Doritos. That's what I need in my life. Make that. What Taco Bell went is like, you don't know you need it, but you need it now. And then they did it. And you know what? We went, yeah, we did need that. You're right. You're totally right, guy. And I don't even smoke pot. I am a totally straight and narrow, well, other than the alcohol, right? But like a straight and narrow. But you're damn right. I got me a Doritos Locos taco. I ate that crap out of that. So A+ to you, Taco Bell, sponsor this show.
Okay, so do we have an average then?
It's either a C+ or a
yes,
B-, something
Paul,
in there.
Paul, Prince Justin in chat has already come up with an average for us. It's a C+.
Okay, I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, but I'm going to make
Sean
it a B-.
looks really sad.
I'm going to make it a B- average, so you can just deal with it.
I guess it depends on if you're going with the median or the mode or whatever. So,
Trish, I haven't taken stats in 15 years, so you know what? You keep that stuff to yourself. Okay, folks. All right, we've done a podcast. So please, as always, if you like the show, you can contact us, send us your feedback about the episode or whatever at skiffingfantasy.com/listener suggestions, especially if you'd like to suggest something, or you can send emails directly to us at skiffingfantasy@gmail.com. A reminder, if you do that, I will be happy. But if you send a mean email, I will just forward that to Daniel. So, actually, he'll read it anyway because he reads the email, so whatever. We are Skiffy and Fanty all over the place. You can find all of the links to our social media channels. Excuse me, I have a Baja Blast burp. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Taco Bell. Anyway, go to our link tree, linktr.ee/skiffingfanty, and you can find that. There is a newsletter if you go to skiffingfanty.com/newsletter, all of that good stuff. Please support the show. Go leave us reviews, all that good things. Patreon.com/skiffingfanty if you want to give us all your money, especially your retirement savings. Although maybe you should save that if you're being, smart. I don't know. Me, I'm SeanDuke.net. I am here, Alphabet Streams on Twitch. This is also where Skiffing Fanty is every Friday at 7 p.m. Central. So if you want to come for that. I have Patreon, and I'm on Blue Sky and all the other places, and my link tree is just /SeanDuke. You can find all kinds of cool stuff that I do there.
You can find me, Trish, on Blue Sky at P.E. Matson, on Mastodon at newsy.social/@TrishEM, and on my blog, whatsthewordnow.blogspot.com. And of course, I've been doing reviews on Skiffy and Fancy for about a year now, again, since we resumed those.
And you can find me, Julia, at juliarios.com. That is JuliaRios.com. I'm also on Patreon, so you can look for me there. And I'm on Blue Sky as at OMGJulia and Instagram as at ZOMGJulia. So those are all the places you can find me.
Julia is places. Follow Julia.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Cool.
As is required by the Skiffy and Bandy bylaws, which everyone on this podcast at this moment signed when we first brought you on, I have to make this awkward, which is really hard for me to do because I've never been awkward in my entire life. But I will let you know that I am actually working on an amusement park based on Demolition Man. And the rides in this amusement park will include a ride called Boot, which is just where a life-size replica of Wesley Snipes' foot in one of his shoes that he wore in this flies at you really fast and scares you. So it's basically like you just sit down and get scared, like you're going to get kicked in the face. It will also have a ride which is called the Three Seashells. The thing is, every time you get on the ride, it's different. So you don't actually know which version of the ride you're going to get. So nobody can actually describe what the ride is about, which is why everybody says nobody understands the Three Seashells. And then everything food-wise will be provided by Taco Bell. I've already been working on the contracts for this. They will also be making a very special rat meat taco specifically for this. The rats will be sourced directly from the sewers of New York. Yeah. It's called Demoland. You're welcome. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other.
Murder, death, kill.
Yay! And on that note, awkward ending and scene. If you want to support this show, you can go to patreon.com/skiffyandfanty or skiffyandfanty.com, our website, where you can get access to all of our fancy things. Our music comes from Holy Mole. You can support him and his work at patreon.com/holymole. Thank you for listening.